Some people think money buys respect, even silence. But there are things not even a whole fortune can avoid. Destiny, and destiny, oh, my child. Destiny doesn't like being contradicted. I was there in the Brasilia airport lounge, waiting for my flight, when I saw the scene, a suited man, with a watch shinier than the dry season sun, leaning back in the VIP area. He looked like he owned the world, or at least, Terminal 1. On the other side, came a boy, skinny, wrinkled shirt, an old backpack on his shoulders, and a sketchbook hanging by a worn-out string. He must have been around 10, eyes wide, curious, like he was seeing everything for the first time, and at the same time, like he'd already seen way too much for his age. The boy walked slowly, pulling his mother by the hand, trying to find the boarding gate, and that's when the suited man decided to speak up. "This is the future of our country?" He laughed loud. "Kid can't even read an electronic sign. Must be here just to see a plane up close." The mother squinted. The boy looked down, but he didn't respond. He just pulled out his little sketchbook and started scribbling something. Right there, in the middle of the lounge. Me, I'm old, but not blind. I saw those scribbles weren't just scribbles. In under 5 minutes, the boy had drawn, with surgical precision, the airport itself. The security guard nearby noticed. He called an attendant. And within minutes, people were taking pictures, filming, amazed by that boy's talent. And the suited guy pretended none of it concerned him, but his red face and sweaty collar told the truth. Life loves to flip the script. 2 hours later, they were on the same plane. The boy and his mother cramped in the back, and the rich man in business class, sipping white wine with a warm towel on his face. Clear skies, smooth flight, until, in the middle of the night, it happened. It wasn't turbulence. It wasn't a system failure. It was a scream, a muffled scream, and the sound of a fall. Someone had fainted, and guess who was in trouble? The very millionaire, the same one who mocked the boy earlier. But what happened next, my friend? Not even a soap opera would dare to write it. The plane went silent. You know that kind of silence that weighs on your ears, that makes even the engine hum disappear. Yeah, it was like that. The flight attendant rushed over. Then the announcement blared over the speakers. "Is there a doctor on board? I repeat, any passenger with medical training, please identify yourself immediately." But nothing. No answer. The rich man lay slumped in his seat, breathing heavily, eyes rolling, skin turning gray like soaked printer paper. The stewardess was shaking. A woman nearby started praying out loud, and panic, that invisible beast, began spreading like smoke between the rows of seats. That's when the boy stood up. He looked like he was in a trance. His mother tried to pull him back. "Stay here, son. This is grown-up stuff." But he didn't listen. He walked slowly down the narrow aisle, sketchbook in hand, eyes fixed on the man as if he were seeing something no one else could. He stopped in front of the unconscious man, opened his sketchbook, and showed a drawing. It was a heart drawn with colored pencils. But not just that. It had markings, clogged veins, an arrow pointing to the exact area where the man's chest was rising unevenly. "It's here. It's blocked," just like it was with the uncle yesterday at the square. The stewardess's eyes widened. "What?" The mother rushed forward, but it was too late. The boy had already pulled off the man's neck scarf, tilted his head back, and began pressing on his chest, clumsily, but with total sincerity. And the unbelievable happened. The man jolted. Gasped. And coughed, a dry, heavy cough, like he was choking on his own swallowed pride. He slowly came to, and opened his eyes, dazed, until they focused on the boy. The same boy he had mocked just hours before. The actual doctors on board showed up only later. They'd been sleeping, can you believe that? But the essential part had already been done. What no one knew yet was that the sketch in that notebook was just the first sign of something much bigger, because that boy, he wasn't just a talented artist. He was something the world still hadn't figured out, and the rich man, he was about to find that out in the most painful way possible. After the chaos, the flight continued in a different kind of silence. No one spoke loudly. No one laughed. Even the sound of the drink cart seemed to tiptoe, and the rich man, he sat there, eyes lost in the window, like he was seeing the sky. For the very first time, the boy, back in his cramped seat at the rear, pulled the blanket up to his chin and fell asleep like nothing had happened. His mother trembled, holding him close, but me, I couldn't sleep because that wasn't normal. That boy, he knew Dot in a way that even adults with diplomas don't understand. Where we landed, the airport turned into a frenzied ambulance, firefighters, press. The rich man was taken straight to the hospital. They said he had a pre-heart attack, that, if not for the intervention, he would have died midair. But how did they know where to press? A reporter asked. We're not sure. A boy helped. It was a miracle. A miracle. Maybe, but a miracle with colored pencils. Days later, the news spread. Child saves executive during flight withdrawing that pointed to heart failure. The boy's photo was everywhere, but his name, no one knew. Funny thing is, no one even asked. What mattered was the spectacle. The headline, the clicks, but the rich man, he made a point of finding out. 3 days later, he showed up at the woman's house, arrived in a black car with a driver and everything, knocked on the door, hat in hand, tie crooked, and the look of a man who had just been slapped by life. I came to say thank you for your son. The woman, cautious, kept the door half open. The boy peeked from inside, holding the same sketchbook. The rich man knelt, lowering himself to the boy's height. Can I see what you're drawing? The boy turned the page and showed him. It was the man's face, exactly how he looked on the plane. Eyes rolling back, mouth open, sweat on his forehead, and a black shadow coming out of his chest. The rich man went cold. What is this? The boy answered. That was the creature. But it didn't get you because I talked to the light. The mother pulled the boy back. He's had this since he was little. He sees inside people. The doctors call it vivid imagination. I think it's God whispering to him. The man tried to laugh, but couldn't, because deep down, he knew this wasn't just imagination, and what was coming next would prove it in a way he wasn't ready for. A week later, the rich man called the boy's mother to his office, said he wanted to help with the boy's education. But that was just the excuse. The truth, that man, so used to numbers, stocks, contracts, and profits, had started having dreams he couldn't understand. Dreams of his own heart shattering like glass. Dreams of the plane crashing in slow motion, and worse, dreams of the boy standing in the aisle, holding a drawing and saying, "Be careful with the invisible scar." On the third day, he woke up screaming, called a psychologist. Am I going insane? Could be post-traumatic stress, or maybe guilt. Guilt? He didn't even know where it began. Maybe, with that comment at the airport, maybe after years of ignoring everything that didn't shine. But there was something more. He started investigating on his own. Found out the boy's name was Kaik, lived with his mother in a distant neighborhood, in a rented house with a leaky roof. The father, gone. Steady job, just the mother's cleaning gigs and the drawings the boy sold at the street market. Then came the detail nobody noticed, but the rich man did. Among the drawings for sale at the stall, between landscapes and dog caricatures, was a strange one. A man sitting in a wheelchair, and behind him, a shadow with red eyes and sharp teeth. The shadow was the same as the one in the first drawing. The rich man asked, "Why did you draw this?" Kite glanced sideways and whispered, "That man will die if he doesn't say sorry. The shadow already took his leg. Now it wants the rest." The man swallowed hard, because he knew the man in the wheelchair. It was his business partner, the one he betrayed years ago, cutting him out of a multi-million-dollar deal, right then and there. The rich man was certain. The boy didn't just see the body. He saw the soul and the cracks time tries to hide. But he still didn't know the worst part, because Kaik's next drawing wouldn't be about someone else. It would be about him. The next day, the rich man showed up at the street market again. No driver, no tie, no posture of a man who ruled the world. Just him, and a fear dripping down his temples like cold sweat. The boy's mother was startled. "You again?" He simply replied, "I need to see his sketchbook just one more time." Kaik, sitting on an upside-down fruit crate, was drawing as usual, as if the world didn't exist around him, only the paper, the pencil, and whatever it was that whispered in his ear. The man stepped closer. "Did you draw anything else about me?" The boy stopped, didn't smile, didn't react. He just closed the sketchbook slowly and said, "This one I hid." The rich man's heart sped up. "Why?" "Because this one's not for seeing. It's for choosing." "Choosing what?" Kaik looked up, as if hearing a voice no one else could hear. "Whether you stay sick or heal from the inside, The mother pulled her son's arm. "Kike, what kind of talk is that?" But the rich man didn't laugh, didn't scoff, didn't doubt, because deep down, he already felt it. That night, he had the worst dream of his life. He was trapped in an empty airplane, falling in a free fall. But it wasn't the fall that terrified him. It was the boy standing in front of him, holding the sketchbook. "You chose wrong." He woke up screaming, drenched in sweat, got up, ran to his office, and opened a lockbox he hadn't touched in years. Inside were old contracts, folders, photos, and among them, a photo of the partner he betrayed. The one in the wheelchair. He drove to the hospital, still before sunrise, and for the first time in years, he cried in front of another man. "I was a bastard to you, Marcio, and now I think the bill is coming due." The partner, with tired eyes, squeezed his hand. "I never thought I'd hear that from you, but regret is a start." The rich man left the hospital with a lighter chest and a message on his phone. It was from Kike's mother. "He said he can show you the drawing, but it has to be in the right place." The man replied, "Where?" The answer came just below, Gate 32, the same as before. And there, on that same floor, where he mocked the boy weeks earlier, he saw the drawing. Kike opened the sketchbook, and what was there chilled him to the bone. A coffin, and inside it, the rich man himself. But the detail, there were the piles, drawn above the coffin, one covered in thorns and darkness, and the other with trees, a bridge, and a boy holding a lantern. "You still have time," Kike said. The man collapsed to his knees in the middle of the airport because he understood, right there, that what Kike saw wasn't death. It was a warning, the last cry of his soul begging for help. And there was more, because what Kike revealed afterward would shake the man's entire past to its core. Asterisk that night, the rich man didn't go home. He stayed at a cheap hotel near the airport, took off his shoes, dropped his phone on the floor, and lay on the bed staring at the ceiling like it held the answers his money never could buy. But what he heard the next day wasn't an answer. It was a reckoning. Kike's mother called early in the morning. "He's acting strange, saying weird things. He said the man is trapped in a broken mirror." "Do you know what that means?" The rich man went silent, because he knew. Oh, he knew. He rushed to a hidden cabinet in his office. It had a false bottom. Inside, things no one else knew existed. Not lawyers, not accountants, not lovers, letters, photos, yellowed papers. Among them, an envelope with no return address. Inside, a picture of a woman, brown-skinned, shy smile, round belly. And on the back, handwritten, "He was born. You didn't want to see him, but he will see you." The rich man collapsed into the armchair, cried like a child, because he recognized the features, the eyes, the mouth, the way he held the pencil. Kike wasn't just an airport miracle. Kike was his son. Son of a woman he abandoned 20 years ago. In a small town where he opened a branch office. He was married at the time, said he'd sort everything out later, but disappeared, never returned, never answered the letters, never wanted to know, thought he had handled it. But time doesn't forget what the conscience tries to bury. And now, the boy he mocked, who saved him, who confronted him with a sketchbook, was the same one he tried to erase from his story. The next day, he showed up at the mother's house again, but this time, he didn't say a word. He just knelt at the gate and stayed there. The mother opened the door, her eyes filled with tears. "You remembered her, didn't you?" The rich man didn't answer. He just cried. Kakyu appeared behind her, still, silent, sketchbook in hand. "I know who you are," he said. And then added, "But I don't know yet if I want to forgive you." Silence, the heavy kind, the kind that weighs on the chest. The man lowered his head. "I didn't come to ask for anything. I just came to begin." Kai closed the sketchbook, then started by apologizing to my mom. She cried for 20 years. The mother said nothing, but the tears that fell were the same as long ago. The rich man left that place smaller than he arrived, but for the first time, truly a man. What he didn't know was that this story still held one last twist, one that came from above, from the sky. The weeks passed. The rich man tried calling. Sent flowers, even sent a check, which Kike's mother returned with a cold note. "We don't want your money. We want your presence." He got the message. He showed up again, this time, No fancy car. No expensive suit. Just him, a bag of warm cheese bread, and an apology that didn't come from his lips. It came from his eyes. Little by little, Kaik started letting him stay. They sat in silence, drawing side by side. The man couldn't draw more than stick figures, but that didn't matter. What mattered was being there. It was on one of those afternoons, with the orange sky pouring light over the rooftops, that the boy laid on his mother's lap and whispered, "I'm getting weak again." The mother froze. "What do you mean, my love?" "Like when I was little, remember? When I saw shadows and got dizzy." She remembered all the hospital visits, all the tests that said he was fine, while he cried at night, saying other people's hearts hurt inside him. They took him to the hospital again, and this time they found it, a murmur in his heart, a hidden defect from birth. And now, as he grew fast, it began to take its toll. "Is it serious?" the rich man asked the doctor. "If we don't operate soon." "Yes, his heart is overworking." "Can he be operated on with a transplant?" "Maybe." The ground disappeared. The room spun. The mother cried silently. The man trembled. But Kaik just kept drawing, and when they asked what he was drawing, he showed them two hearts, one small, cracked, and one bigger, with a golden scar in the middle. "This one's mine. This one's his," he said, pointing to the rich man. The doctor didn't understand, but the man understood everything, because in that moment, he knew there was only one way to save the boy who had once saved him. Asterisk night fell heavy on that hospital. One of those nights that feel longer than usual. The wind knocking on the windows, and the hallway lights flickering like time itself hesitated to go on. The rich man sat in the chapel, alone. No one around, just him and the sound of his own breathing. He looked up at the crucifix, eyes wet, hands shaking, and asked the question stuck in his chest. "Is this how life collects its debts, Lord?" The doctor had already explained everything. The boy needed a transplant. His heart was too weak. But what no one else knew was that years ago, in an emergency surgery, the rich man had received an experimental device, a special pacemaker, imported, attached to his heart, strengthening his cardiovascular system. That's why he survived the attack on the plane, because of the device, and because of the boy. But now, for Kaik to live, he would have to give up the very thing keeping him alive in comfort. "If I remove it, will I die?" he asked. The doctor hesitated. "It's not guaranteed, but the risk is high." And that's when the rich man laughed, a sad laugh. Tired. Laced with irony. Rich enough to die comfortably, or alive just to stay a coward? He left the room without another word, went straight to the boy's room. The mother dozed in a chair. Kaik was drawing, as always, but this time he drew a hospital bed with wires and lights. The man sat on the edge of the bed. "Hey, champ." Kaik looked at him with that mix of innocence and wisdom. "You came to say goodbye?" The rich man swallowed hard. "No, I came to say that if anyone deserves this good heart in here, it's you." Kaik smiled, not fully understanding, but his gaze softened the man's chest. The next day, he signed the consent. Authorized. The removal of the device. Direct donation, a massive risk. "Are you sure?" the doctor asked again. "More sure than I've been about any business deal I ever closed." And before going into surgery, he made one last request. That Kaik be given the drawing he tried to make back at the airport. Weeks before. It was clumsy, poorly drawn, but honest. The two of them sitting on the floor, with the sun rising behind them. The caption read, "Father and Son." The surgery was scheduled for the next morning. But that night, something happened. Something no one expected. Not the doctors, not the mother. Not even the rich man himself. Around 3 a.m., a nurse came sprinting down the hospital corridor like a soul on fire. She burst into the ICU shouting, the boy is on his feet." The doctors thought it was a mistake, a hallucination, maybe, after all. Kaik could barely stay awake in the last 24 hours. But there he was. Standing. No machines. Heart beating strong in his chest, and his eyes more alive than ever. "Where's he?" Kaik asked, looking around. "Who, son?" his mother said, her voice cracking. "The man from the drawing, the one who gave me light." Then the ICU doors opened. And the rich man walked in. No IV. No wheelchair. No support. Walking like a man carrying a secret in his bones. The doctor rushed toward him. "You can't be standing. The device has been removed. Your heart could fail, but it didn't. And in that moment, science fell silent, because only faith was speaking now. The rich man knelt beside the boy, took his hand, and cried, "Looks like someone up there changed their mind, huh?" He whispered. Kike squeezed his hand. Maybe it was the drawing. Maybe it was the choice. The boy's medical chart read, sudden, unexplained recovery. The rich man's, severe cardiovascular risk, without mechanical support. But he was there. Alive. Whole. And for the first time in years. Complete. The doctors couldn't explain it. The media tried and choked on their words. Called it a surprising recovery, a rare case, a positive anomaly. But those who witnessed it, those who felt the air in that room, knew. It had no technical name. It had a name. Miracle. Days later, already in the room, Kike asked, "Are you going to leave again?" The man fought back tears. "Now I'm staying, if you'll let me." Kike thought for a moment. Then, for the first time since the airport, he smiled wide, but no excuses later. None, only hugs. They hugged, a hug that erased 20 years of absence and rekindled what should have never gone out. But life, my child, life doesn't settle for happy endings that easily, because what was coming was not an ending. It was the true beginning. A few months went by. Kike was back to running, playing in the street, drawing like someone born with ink in his veins. He was a different boy, lighter, happier, but still with that look, the one that sees beyond. The rich man, on the other hand, did something no one expected. He sold part of his company, quit the board meetings, and opened an art school in the same neighborhood where Kike lived. Why all this? People asked. To give back a piece of what I stole when I was blind. He said. The school was named Light on Paper. Children from everywhere came to learn to draw, but not just with pencils, with soul. Yet the story still had one. More twist to deliver. On a rainy afternoon, Kike showed up in the man's office holding the old sketchbook, the same one, the relic of the first drawings. "I'm giving it back," he said. "Why?" the man asked, surprised. "Because you're going to need it." The man opened the sketchbook, and there, among the worn-out pages, was a new drawing, a tall building, lit windows. At the top, to figures talking on the rooftop. One of them holding an envelope, the other crying. "What building is this?" Kike looked him in the eye. "You'll find out tonight." It sounded like nonsense, but by now, the man knew. With Kike, the impossible was just a detail, and it really was that night. The building. In the drawing was the old company headquarters, now under new management. There was a farewell event for former executives, and he had been invited. During the cocktail party, one of the old partners approached, carrying a wooden box. "He asked me to keep this for you in case you ever came back." Inside was an envelope, a will. And there was his name, listed as heir to $1 million trust left by an old investor of the company. An old friend who had vanished years ago, the same man who once believed in him, back before greed, took over. The will read, "If you ever remember who you were before the money, then maybe you deserve a second chance." The man stood frozen, eyes filling, because in that moment, he understood the universe has memory, and sometimes it just waits for the right moment to return what was taken. Outside the building, Kike was waiting on the sidewalk, holding a new sketchbook. "You drew again?" the man asked. "I drew what comes next, and what comes next." Kike opened the page. It showed him. It was a family, a father, a mother, a boy, a toothless dog in the corner, and a tree with golden leaves growing behind the house. "Is this our ending?" Kike shook his head. "No, this is our new beginning." But the past still held one last secret, a secret that had been sleeping in the hospital where it all began. In the back of a locked cabinet, down one of the cold corridors of the hospital, lay a dusty red folder, forgotten among old pediatric files. On it, scribbled in pen, Kike dos Santos, confidential. A new nurse found it, tasked with digitizing records from the old pediatric wing. When she opened the folder, her eyes widened. There were not only medical reports, but also handwritten notes, some from the hospital director himself, and even stranger, letters. Letters exchanged between a French doctor and a neuroscience institution in Canada. The subject, a child with extracognitive perception, patient displays advanced visual anticipation ability, possibly linked to gestational trauma or post-anomalous neurological factors. Long-term study recommended. Yes, Kikwi as a baby, he had been subjected to a series of tests, silent observations, and scans, all without full parental consent. A clinical project on the edge of ethics. The doctor suspected something, but chose study over warning. They saw the gift as an anomaly. The folder landed on the desk of the current hospital director. Shocked, she contacted the retired former medical lead. He now lived quietly on a farm in the countryside. When she asked why the tests were halted, he responded gravely, because one day he drew me in a coffin. The director didn't laugh, didn't question. She just took a deep breath. And what happened after that? The old man replied, 2 days later, I had a stroke, only survived because my wife found me in time. That boy never got it wrong. The director, shaken, immediately called the rich man. You need to see this. There are things here that might change everything you think you know about your son. Hours later, he and Kike's mother sat in the hospital office, holding the folder in their hands. They read everything, every line, every test, every brain scan showing activity in areas scientists claimed only lit up during deep states of monk-level meditation. The man turned pale. He knows what will happen before it happens. The mother whispered, not always. Only when someone's heart calls him. That's when Kike entered the room. Talking about me again. Huh, he said with a smile, but his eyes were filled with tears. As if he already knew. His father knelt in front of him. Son, is there something else I need to know? Kike opened his sketchbook. And showed a new drawing. It was him, older, wearing a suit, holding a microphone, standing before a huge audience. One day, I'll tell stories, just like you told mine. But first, we still have to face the end of yours. The rich man swallowed hard, because he understood not everything had been resolved, and something was coming, something Kike had probably seen before any of them. The sky that afternoon felt heavier. Not just with the threat of rain, but something deeper, the kind that shakes you from the inside. The rich man, now more father than businessman, walked through the park with Kike, trying to pretend everything was normal, but the boy's eyes gave it away. You're seeing something again, aren't you, son? Kike took a deep breath. I had a dream about you, about the plane again. But this time, you didn't come back. The man stopped. His heart, which had been calm since Kike's recovery, started to stumble again. You think it's going to happen again? Kike shook his head. No, I think it already is. As if destiny whispered, the phone rang. It was an unknown number. On the other end, a muffled, formal voice. Mr. Ricardo Morel, you've been named in an investigation involving a past tax evasion scheme tied to your former company. The world spun. There must be a mistake. We have records, digitally signed documents, and an anonymous tip. Double quotes tip. He hung up, sat down on a park bench, sweating cold. That same night, Kike entered his room holding a crumpled paper. It wasn't from his sketchbook. Just plain paper. Black pen. I drew this yesterday, but I didn't know if I should show it. The man uncrumpled the sheet, and there, in the bold lines of a 10-year-old, was his face, behind bars, but with a detail, a book in his hands, and a group of children sitting around him. What is this? He asked. You're going to prison, Kike said calmly. But you'll teach in there, like you teach here. Prison? For something I'm not even sure I did. Kike shrugged. Maybe you didn't do it, but you let it happen. You spent a long sleep walking. The man looked at his son, throat tight. For the first time, he wasn't afraid of prison. He was afraid of losing that bond with his son, of not being there to see him grow. To hear him dream, to keep drawing the world beside him. The next day, the official summons arrived, stamped, sealed, heavy. He had the options: run, something he'd always been good at. Or face it. On the last page of his sketchbook, Kike drew a judge's gavel and a flower blooming beneath it. Sometimes, when we accept guilt, forgiveness grows. The man cried because he understood the ending he'd avoided all his life was actually the only way to start again. And that same week, he turned himself in. What came next surprised even fate itself. The media didn't let up. Headlines everywhere. Millionaire businessman turns himself in after mysterious tip. The Morel case. Fall of an empire. Man saved by gifted boy now faces his own demons. Ricardo Morel entered prison like someone stepping into a cocoon, not to rot, but to transform. In the first few weeks, he remained silent, withdrawn, thinking, feeling, digging up every mistake he'd spent his life pretending didn't exist. But inside, there was silence, and in silence, truth has more space to shout. The other inmates stared. You're that rich guy from TV, huh? Here for vacation among the sinners? But he never argued, just listened, until, one rainy afternoon, he asked for paper and pencil and began writing. Diary of a Late Father. He wrote about Kike, about the drawings, about the airplane, about the shame of not being a man before, being a businessman. The inmates read and cried. One day, one of them, Zaino Guerra, a former construction worker jailed over a site accident, said, "You should teach a class. There's stuff in there we've never heard in our lives." So Ricardo did. Every Wednesday at 2 p.m. in Block C, he gave a class. He spoke of ethics, business, losses, children lost to life, wrong turns, and second chances. And every class ended with a drawing. That's right. The inmates drew, each one what they wanted: a mother they hadn't seen in years, a childhood dog, a neighborhood soccer field, an open cell, a starry sky. I learned from my son. Drawing is writing with the soul. Outside, Kike followed everything. Sent letters, sometimes a drawing. One day, he sent one that took Ricardo's breath away. It was him, the father, leaving prison, with stubble, a backpack, and Kike waiting outside, holding the old sketchbook, now taped up and worn. Below, handwritten, "There's still time." 2 years passed, and on a January morning, a justice officer knocked on his cell. "Ricardo Morel, your sentence has been reviewed. You're granted parole. Today." The whole prison paused. The inmates applauded. They shouted, even the toughest. Guards shook his hand. "You saved more lives in here than out there, Morel." Outside, Kike was waiting, and when he saw his father come out, he ran. But he didn't say, "I love you," didn't say, "I miss you." He simply said, "Come on, class starts in 15 minutes. Ricardo laughed, because he knew that was where true freedom began. But before giving his first class outside those walls, Ricardo had one last thing to do. A visit. To a grave. The cemetery sat atop a forgotten hill, where the wind howled louder than the birds, and the names on the tombstones seemed to beg not to be forgotten. Ricardo climbed slowly. Each step was a memory, each breath a plea for courage. He carried in his hands a simple flower, picked from the garden of the new school, and in his pocket, folded with care, the first drawing Kike had ever made, the one with the heart and the shadow. He stopped in front of the grave. Ana Clara dos Santos, 1987-2006, the woman who loved in silence and passed without an answer. Her Kike's biological mother, the woman he abandoned before the boy was even born, who waited for letters that never came, who carried light in her womb and died in the shadow of silence. Ricardo dropped to his knees. There were no crowds now, no reporters, no boardrooms, just a broken man in front of the name of someone to whom he owed everything. "Ana, I came too late. I ran from you, from the boy, from the truth. I thought I could bury it all under contracts, wine, and flights. But life chained me to my own mistake, until I learned to ask forgiveness not with my wallet, but with my mouth." Tears dripped onto the soil. The wind picked up. And in that moment, he felt something he could never explain. As if someone were listening. As if, for just a second, time had turned back, and she was there. "Our son is a miracle. An angel with dirt under his nails. He taught me how to live, even without knowing what a spreadsheet is. He drew the path when all I could see were walls. He took the drawing from his pocket, buried it with the flower. I don't want to hide who I was anymore, but I want to be better in who I'll become." From afar, Kike watched. Said nothing, just stood, the sun at his back and a fresh sketchbook under his arm. On the way back, they walked in silence along the dirt road. The boy suddenly stopped. "Do you think she forgave you?" The father took a deep breath. "I think so, because in the dream I had the other night, she was smiling." Kike stared at the horizon. "So can we begin the final chapter now?" Ricardo looked at his son, knelt on the dusty path, and, with eyes full of truth, said, "Son, with you, every day is a new beginning." But the final chapter still held one last lesson. 2 years after parole, the airport once again became a stage. Same terminal. Same gate. Same smell of old coffee and urgency in the eyes of those rushing between flight boards. But this time, everything was different. On the big screen, a banner. Exhibit: The Wings of Kike, the boy who drew the invisible Ricardo Morel, now with gray in his beard and wearing a simple t-shirt, adjusted the frames on the glass walls with a shy smile. He was the curator of the event, but the name that shone wasn't his dot, it was his son's. Hundreds of people passed through, travelers, tourists, school children, elderly visitors with tears. In their eyes, Kike's drawings were displayed throughout the entire terminal. Each had a small caption, handwritten by Ricardo. Frames like, "The shadow that healed the heart that became a bridge. The father born after the son, Anna. Clara, my mother who sees me from above," and in the center of the exhibit, the most famous drawing, the one of the airplane dot with the man choking, and the boy holding the sketchbook, shining a golden lantern. People stopped, took pictures, cried, fell silent. Then a reporter approached. "Ricardo, what's it like to be the father of such a special child?" He smiled, looked at his son, now autographing catalogs with a colored pencil behind his ear. "It's like being a student every day. He teaches me that the world isn't just what we see. It's what we feel, and most importantly, what we choose to do with what we feel." The reporter hesitated. "And are you still afraid of flying?" Ricardo laughed, that kind of laugh that mixes irony with tenderness. Today, I'm afraid of living without listening to what the soul wants to say." Then the speaker system announced, "Passengers for Flight 828, destination, New Life. Please board with light baggage of resentment and hearts full of forgiveness." Kai climbed onto a little bench and shouted, "This flight's ours, huh, Dad?" Ricardo picked up the suitcase. On the tag, written in child's handwriting, "Dad, now you can fly." As they walked through the gate, Kike looked back, saw the drawings, saw people smiling, saw the past displayed without shame, without knots, without fear, and murmured softly, "Some things only heaven can explain." Ricardo nodded, "But it's on earth that we make it right." And so, with their feet on the ground and souls in the sky, they boarded the plane, a father and son, a man and his mirror, a mistake and its redemption. The airplane door closed, but Kike's sketchbook, though, that still had blank pages. Because where there is forgiveness, there's always one more story to draw.